hold on. If this is going to turn on, we're going to have a real great day. Hey, how you doing? This is Brandon Buchanan. I know you know me. I'm streaming on a lot of places that I don't usually stream, whether that's my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my a lot of my regular accounts. I haven't started going back to Twitter yet. The day's gonna come that I return to Twitter. That's gonna be a glorious day. It's gonna be like General MacArthur. But in the meanwhile, and that might even be as soon as today. In the meanwhile, I want to talk about filmmaking. We've got a video making club on Discord, and really the basic idea is that anybody can make a movie. And we've talked about this for a while in our own groups. We've been working on filmmaking, both commercial projects and those more artistic and personal projects. We're not ready to share everything, but I would think that by the end of this year, you're going to see demos. You're going to see, and if you're a close fan of the Ghost Coast video universe, you know that we were working on, Kennedy Cooper and I, we were working on an audio drama called Psycho Venom, and we'd recruited actors from some of our favorite podcasts. And this was basically us trying to transition. We started out just doing podcasts. Now we wanted to do something that was a little more meaningful and a little more long form. And that kind of went great. But honestly, as we made it, it got bigger as we were making it and working on it and talking about it. And it became a little bit more than a radio drama. It became, well, you'll see in 2025, relatively early, what's going down in the Ghost Coast video universe. In the meanwhile, we're working on building a theater. It's going to be a miniature theater, and we're going to take it around town, let people look at it, and just like come into a venue near you, any kind of small business, we're going to have a beautiful handmade venue. And I'm not going to share all the details of that, but it's going to be real radical. You're going to love it. The theme, we're here at Little 5 Points now, typically, and as this is going to be a long show probably, but I'm definitely going to hit the road and talk to a few of these vendors and get some viewpoints from them. We're talking about scary movies. We're talking about how you can make a scary movie. We're also going to talk about the elements that go into making a scary movie. And it's going to be a real good time. Kick back, relax, pace yourself. This ain't going to be like a YouTube essay where I'm just going to sit up here and spit a million miles a minute at you. But what I am going to do is talk to you. We're going to have guests coming through all day and all night. We're going to be talking about filmmaking, people's favorite Halloween films, their favorite horror films in general. And we really want to get into the idea. And I didn't make a big old script today, but you don't need a big script to understand this idea. Anyone can make video. Even if you have a shitty camera, even if you have shitty mic, even if you live somewhere weird and you think nobody wants to see it. When we talk about filmmaking, it's really what really makes movies really cool is that and we got real construction of sets and film. I mean, we're here in the middle of the Atlanta film industry here, so there's always stuff going on. As we talk about filmmaking, we're really talking about, and we're talking about a set of elements. They're all different from, if you take a movie and you break it down to components, there's the actors, there's the directors, there's the setting, there's the scenery, there's special effects, there's sound. There's your idea. And all of these really can be stripped down to something that's so cheap and so easy to do that anybody can make one. At least that's my core premise. And as we're here at Halloween, we're going to be asking folks to take pictures, participate, and tell us not only what their favorite movie is. We're going to get people to have that conversation, just so that, from my own personal perspective and reasons, I can go back and I can talk to people. I can go look at, oh yeah, I talked to Doug at the booth, 5 months ago, and he said he liked Cape Fear or The Ring. Now, months later, we've got something that we can watch and talk about and analyze. Really, one of the reasons why I love people's playlists and hearing their favorites is that I can look at that movie and I can look at each of those components and I can learn a little bit something about the tastes of the folks that I'm working with, you know? Uh, that's pretty cool. Anybody can do this. We're going to break it down into 5 different activities that you can do. And these are stuff like framing, it's stuff like shadows, it's stuff like special effects, it's stuff like sound. You get the idea. And I've got 5 of these that I'm going to walk you through. And I really did them within about 50 feet of my location. When you're taking these pictures, and there's anything from with filmmaking, you don't really have to have a live subject. Tell you that again. You don't really have to have a live subject. And for these pictures and these videos, and we're gonna try to get you to tune in through a tool called Video Ask. And literally, they're making the Video Ask right now. But people are going to be able to participate. And honestly, if you're watching this, and you might not even be at Little Five Points for Halloween. But what's really cool is you can do this wherever you're at. I mean, we're going to make just a few basic camera angles or pictures. And even if you're an influencer from somewhere that's nowhere near Atlanta, or if you are bored and depressed in your room, maybe your real life is like a scary movie. I promise you that when we're done talking, you'll be able to say, oh, a scary movie isn't so scary. It's these lists of elements, and it's going to be a lot easier for you. So that's the plan for today. We're going to talk about just filmmaking and the fact that anyone can make a movie. If you go to our website, we're going to have a little landing page here. We're going to ask you to join. We're going to ask you to really take a part, be a part of the magic that happens here. Let's pull it up here. And I'm going to all right, you go to ghostcoast.video/Halloween. You're going to see the landing page and you're going to get to see some of the sites that you'll be seeing today. My plan is to get a camera and go around and talk to all the vendors. I don't know for sure whether I'll be streaming as I do it, but I definitely have got a couple of phones. Actually, I'm pretty sure that I will be streaming. I just don't know who will be here while I'm there. You know how all that goes. It's going to be just a whole thingamajig, for sure. In order to stream to Twitter, you got to buy some bullshit, I think. It's hard for me to eat. I barely even log into Twitter lately. You know, it's become what could be generously described as a hellhole. I'm just being honest here. You know, what am I saying? Yeah. I'm going to get some of my buddies in here. We're going to just slowly roll this day out. And what's cool is pacing is a part of filmmaking. Hold on a second. All right. Let's talk to some people. Don't worry, we're here for a marathon and not a sprint. I'm gonna pull up some stuff. I want to get a URL here so that people can see it, they can watch it, and if you're watching us you can watch on Ghost Coast Video, you can watch on Mixed Deity Media Cafe, you can watch on my LinkedIn, you can watch on Twitter. I mean, honestly, your options are kind of unlimited. Let's talk about filmmaking. First of all, your idea is probably the most efficient thing that you can do when it comes to a horror movie. You know, how many movies have you watched that have all kinds of production value? They have every production value in the world, and the core idea of it just sucks. That happens all the time. I've been watching some stuff on the Disney Channel that is capital N, not capital G good. And it blows your mind when you think of all of the money, the cash that's spent, and nobody really thought about basics of storytelling. What is the act structure of this? What is happening in this story? Who is this person? What are they doing and why are they doing it? Take your time and really think about your idea, because a good idea means, first of all, when we talk about making anything, when we ask somebody, why haven't you made a movie yet? Well, the answer probably is not that you don't have an eye for film. And one of the big things that I'm going to do while we're here at this video is I'm going to prove to you without a shadow of a doubt that you do have an eye for film, and that these compositions that go into making a picture that affects your mind, these are not things that are mysterious. These are not things that are magical. These things are not the limited domain of a few really talented people. And I don't think it's ever been that way. When you really think about the entire history of filmmaking, it's not a long history. They only started making movies like 100 years ago. And when you think about the long stretched out road of human affairs, all of time, filmmaking is a very young art. And so, with any art that starts out, it starts really expensive. But now, more than ever, a phone's real cheap, microphones are real cheap, lighting's real cheap, editing's kind of cheap. You got to get you might have to learn a skill or two to make the editing work. But in terms of just getting your eye and to show the emotional concept of what a great movie is to somebody, if that is inside of you, you can definitely transmit it to a person. Anybody can make video, and the idea is the first step. Horror movies with great ideas. One second. Let's talk about some horror movies with good concepts. Did you guys like Get Out? All strong concept. You only need to watch the trailer. What about even Us? You see somebody doing all this, you get freaked out, you get scared. That is a thing where the idea just carried it. Have you seen the movie A Quiet Place? By the way, wherever you are, you can comment and you can tell me about your favorite movie. Does it just have a great idea, or did it really work more because of the execution? What about the Babadook? This is like a kid's monster that comes to life. This is kind of interesting. It's something where if you just describe it, there's something weird going on. And really, when you're creating a story, you really want a premise that creates questions. You want somebody that's in a situation that's so weird, so interesting, so you name it. It's so interesting that a person has to watch and see what comes next. And obviously, whenever we think of any movie, the storyline is the most important. When I think of a story, I really think of 4 parts. And I'll come back to that and talk about thorough lines and how stories work maybe later. But the core idea here is that the story is the most important thing. And if you take 2 months or 3 months or a year thinking about who your main character is, who's going to challenge their beliefs, what is the relationship between these characters, what kind of situation are they in? If you have those things, you probably have a good movie idea. It Follows, Cabin in the Woods, Blair Witch Project. These are all horror movies where the hook was they just described it in one line. If you were to start just churning, boy, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? What's going on here? If you were to start doing that, you'd find some real sick ideas. I think when you talk about storytelling, the goal here is whether you're making a scary movie, whether you're making a haha funny movie, whether you're making just something in the meantime, you really want to design for impact. Really think about how you want the audience to feel, what you want them to get out of watching your film, and nail that down. Really nail it down. Make it a part of what you're doing. That's real cool when you can do that consistently. Script. Script is where an idea meets reality. And you guys know I talked to Julius about the movie Safe that they were working on. When it comes to the script, well, I guess we're here in Thorough Line Zone. We're in Thorough Line Zone now. We talked about those 4 storylines, right? I want you to imagine like a soldier, and the soldier is in a trench. He's in a war. He's got his gun out. This is clearly a main character. If he's at a war, he's shooting. But as he's fighting this war, another soldier pops out from behind the trench. His face is covered in blood. He looks like a nightmare. He looks crazy. And he says, "Hey, stop where you're going. Turn the hell around right now." That's conflict. And all we saw was these are just 2 people. And what they want is opposed. And now you've got questions. Why? What's happening? What's going on? So you've got what's going to happen to the soldier. Who is this friend and what's his deal? That's 2 questions. And what's going to happen in the battle? That means you have 4 different things going on in your story that you can juggle. And from a storytelling perspective, a good movie does this. A good movie will have these 4 storylines and will touch them in some detail. Bad movies cheat. And if you're telling a horror movie, you really need to think about before we even break out the camera, the equipment, get the script the way that you want it. Really lock the heck in. There are so many movies that it's like, man, you guys should have fixed this in the script. If you take an extra couple of months and write down what you're saying and what your movie means, it's really good. It means a lot. Um, what about a horror movie? How do you script a horror movie? You really, first of all, you think about, we're going to talk about budgeting in a minute because that really has an impact on the kinds of spooks that you can do. Um, and if you're here, you're watching on LinkedIn, if you're watching on uh, Facebook, if you're watching on Twitch, wherever you're watching, hello, welcome. I hope that you're enjoying the Halloween vibes. I hope that you are getting into the mood for spooky season. The Little 5 Points Halloween Festival is right now. It's happening. And so we're live from that festival. It's the high point of the year, and Ghost Coast Video is a sponsor of this festival, and we're members of the Little 5 Points Business Association. If you want to really tap into the culture here at Little 5 Points, why not be a volunteer? You can go to Little 5 Points, l5pbiz.com/volunteer, and they'll send you something. And really, if you live in Atlanta and you just want to volunteer with me at events, you can definitely talk to me. Go to ghostcoast.video/Halloween-invitation. And that'll take you right to, it'll take you to the Discord. You might as well just go to ghostcoast.video/Discord. And we're making this Discord is going to be the home of an in real life theater. And we'll be having it's going to be so sick. Yeah, just do it. So budget is probably the next thing to talk about. Whenever you think about making a movie, the budget is obviously something. Have you guys seen Terrifier 3? Holy crap. So Terrifier 3, these Terrifier movies are micro budget films. And really, this guy made Terrifier 1 for $50,000, which sounds like a huge amount for like a person that's making a thing. But if you're a filmmaker, can I explain to you that $50,000 is not very much money, especially when you think of the crew, the staff, the human beings, the lighting, the editing. There are so many people that go into making a movie. When you pay them, when you get them focused and locked in and you make a film, it's kind of expensive. But horror, if you're into making a movie, a scary movie is probably the way you want to go. Scary movies, I've got less lighting. Scary movies, they're less expensive. Scary movies, they're less of a pain in the butt. Um, and when you think about breakout movies, like, oh, this guy had the breakout hit of the year. This guy had the breakout year. That is probably somebody that made a horror movie. But when you're budgeting, odds are you are not gonna have, oh, I just need $1 million to make my movie, and you go around and you talk to people. Most filmmakers, at least ones that are in my own city, they're micro budgeting. They're talking to people, they're trying to get a venue that they can shoot in, they're trying to get their hands on a camera, they're trying to scrape up like volunteers. They've got a set amount of time that they wanna be able to shoot in. They want to get that one location and those 3 shots in and get them out. When you're budgeting, you've got to really think about what are the assets that you have. If you live, like, let's say you lived in a stage theater and you were making your first movie. Maybe you're bored with the theater and you would be like, that's not interesting anymore. But that's a good place to shoot your movie. If you have a location that you have access to, shoot your movie there. Duh. Um, Makes pretty good sense, right? uh, Whatever your assets are, that's what you lean into. Like, if you're really hot, maybe you are the special effects and you're cheaping out on other things. If you've got really good equipment, you're going to try to shoot a scary movie that's a little more technically ambitious and leans on your equipment. If you've got good costumes or you've got good sound design, you want to think about what you have honestly before you even start making the script. Thinking about the assets that you have, it's just like cooking. You wouldn't say, oh, today I'm going to make a hamburger. You look in the kitchen, you look in the refrigerator, and there's like peanut butter and jelly there. Oh, you can't have a hamburger. You need to look in the kitchen, make the list of the ingredients, find out. When we started doing this conversation, we talked about components, right? Your film is components. So you want to think about the components of acting, scenery, setting, decoration. If this is your first film, even if it's a horror film, I would really advise that you have one actor, one camera, one location, and you think about ways to convey a mood that shifts or changes over time. Because this you can do in 4 or 5 minutes of space in a short film. You can light differently. You can have an actor act differently. You can use props. There are just so many ways to show a person's changing emotional state in one room. It's obviously not as exciting as the kind of things that when somebody oh, I'm going to make a movie. I want Gangland Epic. I want a cast of 20. Or they think, oh, yeah, I want 2 people yelling at each other. I want 3 people yelling at each other. But really, anything that relies on volunteers. I really could just trail off there. Anything that relies on volunteers. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. But I'll say more. Anything that relies on volunteers, you can't rely on it. What if your actors don't show up, even if they're being paid and they're being paid only a nominal amount of money? Actors flink all the time. They just do. I don't know what to tell you. But think about the assets that you have, and remember that, like, in terms of filming, Steven Soderbergh shoots stuff with an iPhone all the time. Now, what Steven Soderbergh has that you don't have is the lighting, the rigging, the dolly. Of course, Steven Soderbergh has a very directed eye, but also you can shoot stuff on an iPhone, and you may need to be creative with lighting. You may need to be creative with setting up the shots, like with tripod and your location, but you definitely can shoot a small film using your cell phone, which is pretty sick. Your cast is an element of your movie. We talked about who are these people. You really want to, number one, get actors that are reliable. And most of the actors that we've worked with have been super, super great. I'm not saying it in a shady way. Like I'm going, hey, first lesson, these actors. No, no, no. I'm not exactly saying it like that. Actors have been great, but also you want to think about who's going to act in the movie. Are you going to put up flyers? Are you going to talk to somebody that you know? Really more important than do I know them? How much money will they work for? What's more important is you really want actors that know their role, actors that are enthusiastic about the story, actors that are enthusiastic not just because a movie would be cool to be in, but that they have some thoughts about the character relationships. They have some thoughts about the monster. They just have some kind of personal stake in what's going on. That's always cool. If you have that, you're doing good. And honestly, you should have that from everybody. If you are writing the movie, you should get that from the director. If you are making the movie in one way, you should have that from the whole crew and everybody that's involved. Because if you have people that really believe in the project that you're making, it makes a big difference. I remember talking to y'all about this project we're working on. Still can't give all the details, but we talked about the premise with the team, and people were clapping. They were hopping out of their seat. They were loving it, right? Enthusiasm, you need that. That's like your bank when the days get really hard and you get sick of doing this, right? Locations. Your locations are definitely an element. We talked a little bit about like if you have a location, use it, but also the locations that you use are pretty like the locations that you use are pretty useful. Think about dark rooms that you've got access to, especially you're making a horror movie. Think about dark areas that you have access to. Think about places that you have access to where a person can comfortably raise their voice and scream. Like, I probably wouldn't shoot a scene where a person's getting tortured to death here because there's just kids walking by. But however, you get on a back street, you get in the woods, you get on a family property, and then you break out a $2 knife and a little ketchup and you start screaming. You go crazy. Churches, backyards, the woods. I've seen some really good music videos that were shot in the woods. Joya Bravo shot a music video just hanging out in the woods, good framing. Did some shots that were like in the woods in the back behind the director's house. Also did some shots that were in like a really narrow area that had some funky lighting and just intercut those two. This is all that filmmaking is. It's just a series of compromises. Look for spaces when we're talking about, I talked about dark rooms, churches, outside. What do all of these things have in common? Let's play Jeopardy for a minute. What do these locations all have in common? They are places with predictable lighting. When you're in a church, you know where the light's going to be. If you're outside in the woods, you know based on the time of day where the light's going to be. If you're in a little property you control, you also know what the lighting is going to be. If the lighting is not reacting in the way that you want it when you set up to shoot, completely changes the vibe of what you're working on, especially if you're working on something that's supposed to be scary, right? One of our challenges, and we're going to have this broken up. This might be by tomorrow. It might be sooner. As soon as I might take a break here and we might come back on. I'm not sure exactly, but we're going to have a challenge. Now, I've recorded all of these challenges and stuff, but I got to put it in the software so that you can use it and interact with it. But shadow is one of these challenges. Wherever you are, if you're in a place that's well lit, if you take something small and put it somewhere dark and fill the frame with it, it's like what happened that suddenly this place that I thought I understood. Yeah, hello. This place that I thought that I understood is different. Hey, what's up? Um, yeah. So if you can, it's not only just finding a shadow. If you put a light source that it already exists and you put it in a strategic place, like you ever seen those movies where a guy in high school meets his crush, they put a light and it's like, oh, and honestly, I got a little light behind me. I look kind of angelic from this perspective. I've got a little gentle haze. If I were to come in here and say, oh, I'm here to help you, there'd be a little light behind me. You'd have some emotional annotations to go with that, right? And a lot of the time with film, a lot of the time you're just experimenting with lighting. Can I block lighting out? Can I let lighting in? And look, I'm gonna see if this works. It might not. Not really. There's just too much light. I look like a goofball. All right. Anyway, sound design is a big part of these. And by the way, if you have any of these elements that you're interested in, join the Discord. Join the Discord because we've got these topics. We're gonna talk about them all year through the lens of movies. Today we're talking about horror movies, but honestly, just any kind of budget filmmaking. We're gonna start talking to you about what we've seen in the movies that we've watched, and we're gonna share with you our own journey into producing just stuff that you can enjoy. If you know us, we've spent a lot of time doing video production for nonprofits, activating people, and really what's cool about that is when we talk about like getting someone to sign up, reply to emails, go to meetings, like really become a member of a community. We did some of this for groups like Detroit Action. We'd make a video about getting out the vote, find ways for people to respond, then publish those in a single video that has nice clips of the person interspersed with the testimonials from the people that work there. It's really nice. Sound design. Let's talk about sound design. A lot of the time you have a movie where it's like, all right, listen, there's just no money. There's no money for the actors. There's no money for the lighting. There's no money for a lot of this, but can we create a vibe? And honestly, even if your movie does a bad job at a lot of other things, you can smartly design sound so that people are like, well, the movie, I don't know, but I like the way that it sounded. When I think about music in a movie, and by the way, if you're here and you can put in the comments your favorite movie soundtrack, your favorite horror scene that uses music in a really memorable way. But when I think about sound, it's not just a great soundtrack, although that rocks. It's also like really great scenes. Good sound can enhance a scene a lot and add a little je ne sais quoi, a little, dum dum. If you're watching Jaws, you hear that doo dum, doo dum, doo dum, and you're like, what's going on? Psycho. I'm not going to sing every song from a horror movie. Is not a good use of time. But if you just think of any time where a movie's going crazy, they can even fake you out with it. And modern movies do this all the time. If you remember, I think It Follows did this. They go do 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 do, and then nothing happens, and they just want to make sure that you're. And any horror movie has this. What's happening? I don't know. Use makeup. That's another thing you can do. A lot of horror shorts, if you go on YouTube, the thumbnail is just the mask. And these guys have like 800,000 views, 500,000 views, a million views. And a lot of it, it's just they got a really detailed, ornate mask, and that is their prop. In any sort of budget filmmaking, you definitely want to think about like what kind of props do you have? What kind of props would you want to have? Can I use these props to illustrate something about a character? Like if I were using this remote to do things, you saw the image changing every time I go, bloop, 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 bloop. No problem. I would look like, oh, I've got an annotation of being more in control of this broadcast, which by the way, I'm pretty in control of the broadcast as it is, right? Makeup, costumes, masks, If you don't have the money for, and maybe you don't have the face for an actor, a mask that's dark, that's suspenseful, where people are, oh, I'm scared. What's happening? This is what helps. This is what does it. Directing. Yeah. Editing. Let's skip directing. Let's talk about editing, because editing, I mean, this challenge has got lots of things. It's got lighting, it's got shadows, it's got framing, it's got angles, it's got sound. What we don't have as a challenge is editing. And the reason for that is editing is brutal. It sucks. You see mistakes, and your job is to turn human work into dramatic work. And when humans talk, when human beings talk, we do not talk in we talk in speech. We do not talk in dialogue. Dialogue is like, movie characters don't talk the way that regular people do. I don't even think that's a controversial thing to say. They just don't. There's no, like, if you ever read like a really shitty book or novel or movie, one of the signs that you're watching something that sucks is when a character picks up the phone and is like, "Hello, this is John." And they're like, "Hey John, how are you? What's happening today?" Are we watching The Room? Characters do not exchange pleasantries generally in movies that are good. Generally, they have conflict. They are talking about something that really means something to them and to the people around them, right? Editing, editing, editing. Slow motion. Disappearing. When a character does like, "Come play with us forever," and they're here, and then you go, "Woof," and then they're here. Yeah. That kind of thing. Man, in that situation, that's good editing. And releasing, is part of it too. Distribution is a part of any movie, and distribution is like a big piece of the puzzle. It's a lot. Distribution is how your film finds an audience, and the stories of distribution are they're a nightmare. I mean, most people have a lot of trouble finding the right investors. It takes not just time and not just connections, but also like a good body of work that people around you have signed on to. And by people around you, I mean like actors that the producers and investors have heard of. If an actor sees your script and they like it and they sign like a letter of intent that says, "Hey, if there were an investor for this, if I were getting paid, I really strongly consider doing this movie." And you don't need Tom Cruise to sign this kind of letter. Like, think of a D-list celebrity like Felicia Day or James Corden or David Cross, or just somebody that's not super popular, but like oh, I know who David Cross is. If somebody like that is a little bit interested in your story, great. Hold on to that. Get them to sign a document. Don't let go. Even if they're not going to really just getting their interest enough to sign a document is pretty big for building those last situations. This is so great. There are so many elements that go into making a film. And no matter who you are, there's something that you can do. This is just part one. I'm going to take a small break. I'm going to get some water or something. We're going to be here. I'm going to be up here for a while. I'm going to go talk to people. I'm going to do some man on the street stuff. I was really hoping that some folks would come by on time, but whatever. So be it. All right. Let's
Now, honestly, because ultimate deal with is self-balance. It's like a person doesn't fucking do their shit. We're not all sitting there hanging with a fixed on them.
Yeah.
Because it would have been set up to where the shit wouldn't even be.
I'll be back. We'll start a new stream in like, I don't know, half an hour. I'll see you soon.